Hey guys, I had one of my viewers ask about the cutter, how to throw a cutter, and it's a great pitch, and so I want to cover it, but then I thought I may as well just cover all the different pitches briefly and also what makes each pitch move. So the big idea with why a pitch moves is the Magnus effect. All right, many of you guys have probably never heard of this. I'll try to make it as simple as I can. So the Magnus effect is simply that the ball is going to move towards where there's low pressure. So a normal four seam fastball is going to spin with backspin like this, and see how the seam right here on top, the whole baseball and the seam, is moving in the direction of the wind. So there's no wind resistance. The wind's able to go through faster up at the top. This creates a low pressure, and so the ball will have pressure pushing it upward. Now, four seam fastball will never actually rise due to gravity, but a good major league four seam fastball will have 11 inches or so of rise versus a pitch thrown with no spin at the same velocity. And that's actually how they calculate the amount of movement right now, is they compare it to a pitch thrown with the same velocity with no spin at all. So a curveball is actually the opposite. It's going to spin down just like this. And so you see the wind is able to go through faster this way because the bottom of the ball and the seams are spinning with the direction of the wind, the air resistance, and so it creates a low pressure here and the ball's going to go down. It's actually the same concept as, think of a perfume. You squeeze the perfume and the air goes over the little pipe which has the perfume down here, and that air creates a low pressure and it sucks it out and it spews it forward. Another way to think about it is if it's on a windy, super windy day, your windows will actually press outward and they'll kind of reverberate like that and shake, and they'll press out because the wind's blowing hard against them, hard against the windows, and that creates a low pressure. So you want to create a low pressure in the direction that you want the ball to move. Okay, so most fastballs are thrown on a little bit of a tilt like this. Not very many are thrown directly straight over, a little bit of a tilt, and so that's why they're going to have a tailing action. Actually, most fastballs tail quite a bit, but because you're so used to seeing them as a hitter and as a spectator, you actually think it's almost perfectly straight, but in fact, they're really moving a lot. In fact, I saw a bird's eye view of Randy Johnson's fastball and his slider. I remember his slider was called, Mr. Snappy. It was like devastating pitch, but his fastball actually moved more. It would go like that, and his slider was relatively straight, but in relation to the fastball, it looked like it was moving an incredible amount, and that's really what matters, okay? Because it's all about perception, the hitter's perception. So let's just talk about, the different pitches, how to throw them. We know what causes the movement, the spin, creating low pressure. All right. So the most basic way to think about how to throw the different pitches is this. Okay. This is something I learned, maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it really makes a ton of sense. Really easy to understand. So your fastest pitch, your fastball, you're just directly behind the pitch. Your hand is like this right here at release, okay? The more you tilt it this way, it's going to slow it down and add more movement. So, for example, a cutter is kind of fastball and just ever so slightly tilted. A slider, some guys will throw a slider all the way here, some guys right here, and they kind of just get on the side of it, right there, right there. It's kind of in between, cutter and a curveball. And a curveball is almost everyone's just totally hammering right here, hammer motion, or even think of a karate chop motion. All right, just right there. That's why a curveball is easier on the arm. You can throw it when you're younger because it's just so simple right there. What you want to avoid when you're younger is this motion there, because that'll really screw up your elbow, because then it's not able to fully pronate this way. And then on the other end of it, so this way is cutter, slider, curveball. On the other end, you have basically right here, you're going to change the grip a little bit from here, fastball, to getting it deeper here, and then usually a little bit here. Changeup. Everyone's a little bit different with their changeup. Some guys just stay right behind it right here, and they have a good one. Okay, some guys are gripping it in the palm right here, and they have a great one. Trevor Hoffman is kind of more right here. And then some guys, I know I saw Scherzer, he says he pushes his thumb down like that on his changeup. So very hard to do, but that's what worked for him. And then on the far extreme, and you almost never see it, is going all the way like this on your pitch, and that would be like a screwball. And so that's really the best way to think about each of the pitches. So a curveball, now I say fastball, obviously every pitcher is going to have, and then curveball is an easy pitch. You're just basically gripping it like this, and most pitches are mostly seam orientation independent, meaning the seams, whether it's this way, this way, this way, this way, it doesn't matter so much. And we know this from wind tunnel experiments. It's a small difference, okay? But it's not, don't stress out about the seam orientation. It's really about how it spins. And so curveball, you're basically just gripping it like this hard. Okay, and I gripped this seam right here, and then boom, just pull it right down. That's a curveball. Such an easy pitch to throw. Kids a lot of times will pick it up in one day. And slider, you're just kind of boom right there. Similar grip usually, and just kind of on the side a little bit. And for example, a lot of guys will pick up a slider in one day too. And the cutter is a pitch that is actually tough to master because it's more of a, such a slight thing. It could be, if it's too much, it's more like a slider. It loses speed. It could be hittable. If it doesn't cut at all, it's just a fastball. And so, for example, I heard a lot of big leaguers, when they'd come talk to us, we'd ask them, what was the toughest pitch you ever saw? Who was the toughest pitcher? And they would say, a lot of them, Mariano Rivera. And they said his cutter, it just looked exactly like a four-seam fastball coming in, and then it just exploded in on the left-hander's hands. And so that's kind of the goal with the cutter. You want it to have very tight spin, and really you want it to just have its axis a little bit tilted. So instead of spinning right here, it's just like this a little bit. So, Rivera just grabs it just like a four-seamer for the most part. I think most guys are here and they just put a little finger pressure here, or they think about getting a little bit on this side, and you're just throwing it with just a hair tilted. And you have to practice it a ton and to really get it. It's a very tough pitch. And a lot of it, with different pitches, pitchers want to know, oh, teach me this pitch, teach me that. A lot of this is going to be based on your own body, okay, how it's structured. For example, I've played catch with guys that have great sinkers, big league sinkers. And I ask them, how do you do it? Like, what's the secret? And then a lot of times they'll just say, I just grab it, two-seamer, and just throw it. And one guy, for example, said that he had his arm x-rayed and his bones were helix. They were a little bit twisted. So when he would throw it, his arm would naturally go like that, but he didn't even think about it. Brandon Webb had one of the all-time great sinkers for a while. He was with the Diamondbacks, and he said he just gripped two-seamer right here, and he just throws it, and that's a sinker. Obviously he's trying to stay close, stay on top, but a lot of it is genetic, and so you can work on it. You can try to make changes, and of course that's what we want to do, but understand some guy is going to have a natural proclivity towards a sinker. Another guy might have a natural proclivity towards a four-seam fastball with a lot of spin, high spin rate. Another guy maybe will pick up a cutter super well. I have a friend who pitched in the big leagues a little bit that had a great cutter. He threw it high 90s, and he said he didn't even think about it. It's just he throws his fastball and it cuts. And sometimes he doesn't have it. That's when he gets hit. When he has it, he never gets hit. Rivera, for the most part, said, his cutter's a gift from God. And so one of the things I try to do is I try to help the kids understand what kind of pitcher they are, and help the parents understand that, what can be my strengths and weaknesses. And you want to stay with your strengths and hone them in as much as you can. And of course, sometimes you want to work on a weakness. Like, some guy might just not naturally have a horrible changeup. Okay, but if you're just going to have two pitches, it's going to be tough. you can do it, but usually you want to shore up a weakness as much you can. And one other thing that's actually, kind of a new thing that people are talking about is with your pitches, with spin rate. I have a video on spin rate you guys should check out. But a sinker is actually most effective when its spin rate is 1 standard deviation or more below average. Okay, so that's kind of why you throw a 2-seamer. Maybe you don't grab the seams as tough. Maybe you're on just the leather, not even on the seams in between or here. And so that takes away some spin. And then, some guys will spread their fingers a little bit. Some guys will try to get on the side of it just a little bit. Takes away some spin. And then we talked about in the spin rate one, a high spin rate, the ball seems to explode and almost rise. The opposite is true with a low spin rate. It'll be like a bowling ball coming in, and that's exactly what you want for a sinker. For a cutter, for the most part, you want a super high spin rate, and some guys like Trevor Bauer has been talking about that when you really, get on a cutter good and really emphasize, get that pressure out front, then you can even increase the spin rate, and that's exactly what you want on a cutter. With every pitch, the higher the spin rate, it's going to move more, okay? Besides a sinker, you want to have a low spin rate so it'll drop. So that's basically it, guys. If you have any questions on what we talked about, message below in the comments. If you want me to do a video on something, message in the comments. This is already a response to one of the users. And of course, if you found this information useful, like the video. Don't be lazy. Like it and subscribe. All right, guys.